The 49ers are the best in the NFC. They may even be best in the NFL. Yeah, I said that. We're going to talk about that right here, and I got my man Larry Krueger here to break it down for you guys. Let's have a great show. Larry's in the building. Here we go.
Breezy this, breezy that. They know I'm gold-blooded. I got the Niners on my back, you know. Breezy this, breezy that. Ain't nobody working like Breezy, and that's a fact.
Larry is
Hey.
in the building. What's going on, bro?
What is going on, man? Nice warm day here on the West Coast. I know you're on the East Coast. We're going coast to coast.
Well, sound the alarm. That's what I like to hear, baby. It's warm here, too. It's a little chilly, but warm at the same time. Very good spring weather. Summer's almost here, so I'm happy. It'll be warm. I don't know about you, but over here on the East Coast, when it gets like hot, it's like sticky, muggy hot, and no one gets along. Everybody's mad at each other. You got to do air conditioner the whole time. It's just really nasty. What is it like out there on the West Coast when it gets hot?
Well, yeah, I mean, I live here in Walnut Creek, and it gets hot, like, 95 to 100 and 110. I mean, it could be anywhere in there through a lot of the summer. But, the nice thing, Breezy, is that it's like we're not that far from, like, the Delta breezes. So, like, you can get, like, a hot day, but most nights you'll get that the cool air at night. So it cools down in the evenings. It's not like Arizona. But it's funny because my sister lives in Farmington, Connecticut. She sent me a picture of her backyard the other day. She had a bear walking around. There's literally a bear walking around in her backyard in Connecticut.
Listen, sometimes you'll find them walking across the street, like depending on where you are. It's rare, but they're here. And beware, because I don't know what to do when you see a bear. I mean, I think, what's the saying? If it's black, I forgot. If it's brown,
you don't run, right? Don't run. Is that the deal?
Well, one of them is you don't run, and the other one is you play dead. Which one? I don't know. I don't remember the saying. I was watching Cocaine Bear, which is the dumbest movie I've ever seen in my entire life, but I actually enjoyed it because it was that dumb. And they had the little saying about the thing. I can't even believe I said that.
Someone said stop, drop, and roll.
Well, one of them.
I think that's when you're on fire. I think that's when you're on fire.
Yeah, that's definitely fire. But if it's brown, lay down. And if it's black, don't look back. I don't know. I'm making it up. Somebody, I'm sure they probably know the sayings out there, the bear. I heard when you see a bear, though, if it gets aggressive for certain bears, I think it's the black bear, you're supposed to get aggressive back. Can you imagine?
No.
A bear going, roar, and then you be like, roar.
Man, just watch out for the swipe though, because man, those guys don't trim their nails, and then they'll take your head off your shoulders.
Look, I'm not messing with any bears, unless it's the Bears. And unfortunately, we lost to them last season. All right, Larry, look, we have a really good show for everybody. I'm glad that you could be here this week. I had a show earlier this morning, kind of talked about, the 49ers and how I felt they're going to be making to run it back, to get back to where they left off, that NFC Championship game. Here we're playing the NFC East, the NFC West, and I want to get your expertise on how you feel we're going to dominate the NFC, or if we don't dominate the NFC. The schedule has been set. We haven't gotten a chance to go through it, so let's go through and we'll focus on the NFC games. But before we get down to the get down and have some good old talk, 49er football talk, I definitely got to shout out the Breezy Bunch members. Jax is in here. She says, hey, Wayne and Larry and the faithful, hope you guys have a great show with great 49er content. Peachy is saying, good afternoon, everyone, with Breezy and Krug. You know it will be a great show. Hashtag the BB. Take 6 as well. Marty Mar Empire with the hashtag BB. Let's see how many of the other Breezy's Bunch members are in here. Shout out to everybody that's tuned into the show. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Guys, if you're not subscribed to Larry's channel, I put it in the description of the show. It's all you gotta do is click on it. You click on it and you go click again and then you subscribe. So it's super simple or whatnot. Larry, you were at the rookie minicamp.
Yes, I was.
I can't wait to hear your takes on some of the things that went down at the rookie minicamp. I want to know who your favorite interview was. I want to know like what you saw out of some of those rookies that are going to be there, and make it as spicy as you can, because I want to get the good old Larry Krueger intake. But we have a quick announcement before we get to that.
Yeah.
The Wayne Breezy channel, round of applause to everybody out there, has just reached 3K. And Larry, you just reached 18K?
18K last night.
Wow. Congratulations to Larry and his channel as well. Hey, Larry, what I'm going to need you to do with the Krug show is get 15K of yours and just tell them to come on and over here and just subscribe to the Wayne Breeze. I'm not as good looking as you, but I promise them I'll bring the energy.
No, that's why, that's part of the reason why I attached you on there, because, you're a part of that. We're going back and forth, Wednesdays at 5 Eastern, this week, my show, my channel, next week, your channel, going back and forth. We've been doing it for a few months and we've missed a couple, but we've been pretty faithful to it. And absolutely, I want everybody in the Krug Show Nation to sign up for Breezy. And then, if it's cool with you, I may pull a cut off of our show today and put it out on my channel. And
it's always cool.
And I'll get my kid, Kevin, who's in college, who helps me with some of my videos. Yeah. I'll get Kev to throw some love to the Wayne Breezy extravaganza.
All right, Larry, I appreciate you. You get the fall. That's a touchdown for you, bro. I appreciate that. Happy birthday shout out, Cleveland Farrell. Farrell, how do you say his last name? Farrell, right?
I think it's Farrell. Yeah, Cleveland Farrell.
Farrell. I have you know what? I have a really good friend of mine whose last name is Farrell, and I never put the connection together. So I'm gonna have to hit her up and ask her, is she somehow related to Cleveland Farrell? If so, I didn't even think about it. Oh man, so slow. But happy birthday to Cleveland Farrell and anybody else's birthday out there. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Now, what I normally do here on the show, Larry, if somebody says that their birthday is today and it has to be today, I would bust out with the vocals and sing a little bit of happy birthday. But since nobody's doing that, we're going to keep it moving. Larry, let's get to rookie minicamp, bro.
Yeah.
First of all, before you talk about it, tell me what rookie minicamp is like. I've never been, and many of us haven't been there, but you get to go there and you get the good old insight. So tell us what it's like. What's the experience like?
Well, it's not, and when first of all, you got to figure out who's there and like exactly who's there and who's not there. So like it was first and second year players, but like there was no Brock Purdy, there was no Spencer Burford, there was no Drake Jackson, not all of the second year players. I get the feeling that it's about it's about first year players, tryout players, and guys who were second year players but were on the practice squad, because that and I think you have, maybe there's the rules state you have to be on the practice squad for a certain amount of games, because like Samuel Womack, for example, he was not there. He's a second year player, but he wasn't there. But like Quantrez Knight was there, so Quantrez was on the practice squad. So I think it's about practice squad players going into their second year, or rookies, or undrafted rookies, or tryouts. So that's the makeup of the roster. And then they're out there with no pads. But they have helmets. So they're out there with helmets, shoulder pads, and shorts. And they're usually running the 49ers system somehow. It starts just like a normal practice with stretching and then individual drills, and then they go to the next drill, which would be like maybe the receivers catching passes from the quarterbacks, and the running backs being handed off balls by somebody who's pretending to be a quarterback, and then it gets into the team play, and even so, you don't have 11 on 11 because you don't have enough. At least in this camp, you didn't have enough offensive or defensive linemen. So it's like more like a 7-on-7 portion of team, the team portion. And it's really just to shake the rust out, see, guys moving in your system, getting the beginning of the teachings of your system out, and trying to kind of establish what your culture is. A lot of like the second year players, Breezy, kind of take the lead. So give you an example, when the receivers were doing their individual drills, Tay Martin was leading the way. Why? Because, there's no Ayuk, no Debo, no Juwan Jennings, no Danny Gray, no Chris Conley, no Ray McLeod. And Tay is like the one guy who's been in the system and has practiced with the team. So he's kind of like the leader. And so at receiver, it was Tay, Ronnie Bell, Isaiah Winstead, Daz Newsome, Shea Wyatt, and like 2 or 3 other guys who worked out, who were not signed, or at least not signed yet. So that's how it went. And there were a number of real positive things that stood out. I always look for, the first thing you're looking for is the obvious. Like, is somebody in awesome shape or is somebody in terrible shape? And we did see Joey Fisher. If there was one negative, it was Joey Fisher, who was their highest rated undrafted free agent signing. They gave him like $130,000 guaranteed. Fisher was out there, but he had to stop with about 25 minutes left in practice because of heat, and it was only 74 degrees. So that was like, I don't know about that, but it's going to be 95 in camp, and they're going to be wearing pads this summer, and it's going to be a whole lot more intense than what it was at rookie minicamp. But he couldn't finish, so that wasn't a great sign. But it's not a disaster either. Right. A lot of these guys, you're traveling, you're flying. The guy ran 4.90 and had 40 reps on the bench. So it's not like he's an out of shape fat body. He, and there are guys that show up at minicamp like disgustingly overweight. He wasn't. He just, for whatever reason, was bothered by the heat. So if there was an overwhelming negative, I would guess it would be Joey Fisher, just from the standpoint he couldn't finish the workout.
So I'm glad you brought that up, bro, because, people were asking me about Joey Fisher. Was he able to return? And I didn't know if there was an injury or what it was. And you just brought clarification. Maybe it was just dehydration, and whatever it was, he had to come out. So
he took a knee. They put some cold towels around his neck, and they had a trainer over by him, and then he just stood on the sidelines for the rest of it. It's not a huge deal. It's not ideal, but it's not a huge deal. Especially not for a big guy who probably just got off a flight, and who knows what he was doing. Maybe he was it's all there's usually something there that caused it. He either took the wrong supplement, or he fasted trying to drop to a certain weight level, or there's some story that probably behind his dehydration. So I don't put a lot into it, but that was the one negative. The only other negatives, if you want to call them that, D Winters didn't look like,
talk about it, Larry.
He was not quite in the shape that, he's a short guy. He's a 5'11", 230-pound linebacker who, he doesn't have a big frame. So any extra weight shows. He's probably carrying 5 to 7 extra pounds around. He didn't look awesome, but didn't look bad. Just didn't look like the electric player that we saw in that national semi against Michigan, where he was the best player on the field, shooting gaps. And the other guy that looked okay to me was Cameron Latou, the tight end from Alabama. His body was fine. His conditioning was fine. He just didn't look. He didn't look like a 3rd-round pick to me. I think he'll make the team. I think Braden Willis, on the other hand, looked really good. But I thought Latou, he's a big kid, pretty athletic looking, but it doesn't seem like he runs that fast. He didn't seem that strong. Nothing really stood out about him. He was there, but it wasn't like he didn't distinguish himself in any of the drills or any of the movements where you looked at him and said, oh, you know what? They got something there. Where Braden Willis looks more like a fullback body-wise, but man, he can catch, and he's got sticky hands, and he's a try-hard blocker, and you can see his kind of emotional. He's an emotional player. He's a fiery leader type of a guy. So he kind of stood out. The guys who really stood out positively, Ronnie Bell didn't look like anything, Breezy, in the individual drills, but when we got to the team drills, Ronnie Bell made 3 or 4 really nice catches.
He's a gamer, bro.
So he's got hands, man.
He's a gamer.
He's got ball skills and hands, and I think that's going to be a good competition. It's going to be, Ayuk, Debo, Jennings. Those 3 are locks. Then it's probably Danny Gray and Ray McLeod competing for the speed spot. And then you probably have Conley, Tay Martin, Willie Snead, Ronnie Bell, Isaiah Winstead, and everybody else competing for maybe one spot.
Ooh.
But based on what I saw out of Ronnie Bell, he's going to give I would say, and I think Tay Martin is going to have a great camp, but Ronnie Bell made the kinds of catches that I expect to see from Tay Martin. So we'll see. If you ask me to make a prediction, I would say Ayuk, Debo, and Jennings make it. I think Danny Gray probably makes it. And then it comes down to who gets that final spot. And it could be Ray McLeod like it was last year, and they could go with the same 5. Or it could be Ronnie Bell, or it could be Tay Martin.
So are you thinking it's going to be 5? Because I'm thinking they're go 6 this time.
Well, I would think 6 too, but then this is they're very deep at running back, and we know they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks. So I would say it's much more likely that if you said predict it right now with like your everything you own on the line. I'll say Ayuk, Debo, Jennings, Danny Gray, and Ray McLeod are your 5.
Yep.
And Ronnie Bell is practice squad.
Interesting. Because I think Ronnie Bell, out of all those receivers, will give you more on special teams. I don't ever see him making to the practice squad. The moment he goes to the practice squad, his ass is gone. I think
it's possible. Believe me, that'll be the other thing to watch for Breezy this summer is does he make so many catches that are impressive in practice that they bury him in the preseason
so that he doesn't get the value. That's a good point. I forgot about that. Larry, thank you. I totally forgot about that. That is the 49er way. I don't think any other team does that. But the San Francisco 49ers, they will find a way to bury you on reps and then on the depth, and so that they can stash and keep you. They probably thought they were going to do that with Jordan Mason last year, and unfortunately they couldn't. So they had to make him active, put him on the practice squad, and put him on the active roster, and they still found a way to bury him. Like he came in very sporadically throughout the season. We're like, let this kid run the ball. So we'll see.
So Ronnie Bell's ball skills really stood out, and the other thing that stood out at wide receiver is Isaiah Winstead has decisive movements. Now, he chops those feet, and his stop and start is impressive. But to me, it's all about what does he look like when the pads come on.
Okay.
Because we didn't, it's a hard spot to say, well, what did he really look like? Because speed there was no moment where he looked fast. He looked slow, but his stop and start was very much like what we saw in that video that went viral, where it's very explosive, and he's putting them up and laying them down. He's got some nice footwork. And I'll tell you this, the other guy that has to be mentioned is they got a kid from Ole Miss that tried out named Pearson, and
Ja'Cour Pearson.
Yeah. Ja'Cour. Yeah. And it's like, he's interesting. And I've actually texted back and forth with him to get him on my channel. And he said, hey man, I haven't signed yet. I said, Ja'Cour, as soon as you sign, I want you to call me and we will go live, because this kid needs to be watched. He started at Western Kentucky, played for the Hilltoppers, transferred to Ole Miss. He's a Fort Lauderdale, Florida kid. He's a great athlete. Played for Devin Bush in high school, high-powered program. Spent 4 years at Kentucky. They used him out of the slot. He was all conference. Then Lane Kiffin gets him to transfer to Ole Miss for his final year, and he didn't play him in the slot, even though he was an all-conference slot player. He played him as the boundary X receiver outside, and he really did him a favor because it gave him greater versatility. And you can see the run after the catch ability. He's got running back experience, wide receiver experience, slot, return man, special team experience. He says his favorite routes out of the slot, he loves to run the corner route. When he's outside, he likes to run the slant inside. He had a great year for the Seattle Sea Dragons in the XFL, one of the best players in the XFL. Jim Haslett, the former NFL coach who coached him in the XFL, thought he was going to run 4.28, which is, Tyreek Hill kind of territory.
Yeah.
Instead, at his pro day, he ran 4.42.
Oh, okay.
So
So
he's
he's a
not a
4.42 guy.
4.28 guy, but he is
Okay.
a 4.4 guy. And there was one where he got loose down the sideline and
Oh
Clayton
yeah.
Thorson dropped it in his lap and he was in the clear by 5 yards. So he's whatever he runs, I can see why Haslett said he's 4.28 because he's going off of his eyeballs.
Correct.
And the 4.42 is what he ran for the stopwatch at the pro day. But when you watch this kid on the field, I would say he's essentially like a 4.35 guy. That's what he plays. He ran 4.42. Haslett guessed 4.28. I would say 4.35 is what I would put him at as far as what it looked like to me. And I know that's very exact, but that's just how I see it. And I think Pearson, if the Niners don't sign him, somebody else will. And if I were them, I would cut Daz Newsome right now and give Newsome spot to Pearson.
Interesting. Interesting. The play that we all saw, we kind of like fell in love with was when he beat the corner out there on the outside and the
Yeah.
ball was dropped right in between the safety. I mean, it wasn't a touchdown play because he fell down, but the catch was it was amazing. And he has the speed to get behind the DB, and that's kind of what you want. I guess the only issue is like why hasn't this kid gotten a chance
He's tiny.
prior?
I mean, he's 5'7". That's the only thing I can guess, Breezy. I mean, if he's 5'9", I think somebody's already signed him. He's 5'7", and there are some of these teams do have cutoffs as far as like, you know, what they will invest in. Some teams won't take anybody who's under 180 pounds. Some
Good
some
point.
teams won't take anybody who's under 5'8". And it's just, and it's their prerogative. But I think when you make hard, fast rules like that, that just burns you. You miss out on guys who don't fit your profile. So I love Pearson, but I'll tell you, there were other guys that stood out. Ilm Manning, number 60, the offensive
Yeah, the
lineman.
offensive lineman.
He is an athlete. Now he played left tackle at Hawaii. I'll tell you right now, he's not a left tackle, but he is an NFL offensive lineman, and he is really looked good. I mean, body lean, athleticism. He could probably put on weight. He's probably around 295. But Ilm Manning is a really good-looking offensive line prospect. I thought he moved exceptionally well. And then the other guys who stood out are the running backs. I don't know. One of these years, Juszczyk's going to get cut. And I don't know if this is the year, but Jack Coletto is real as far as he's a real fullback. Now, he can play fullback. He can play wide quarterback. He can play linebacker. He's a jack of all trades guy, but he looked good. Coletto might give Juszczyk a run for his money, especially if there's any slippage in Juszczyk, man, Coletto could wind up taking that job. He's so much cheaper.
Yeah, but
Juszczyk's established, but Juszczyk is how old's Juszczyk?
we could look it up, but not
He's 32.
so there, I mean Juszczyk, in my opinion, can play if he wanted to. I think Juszczyk is kind of like on his own clock when it comes to football, and there will never be another Kyle Juszczyk. And so I say that to say that if he has the ability to play football and he wants to stay in San Francisco and go throughout his contract, I think the 49ers are prepped to to take care of him because I know a lot of people feel like his stats are declining. I mean, the team is building and they're getting more and more weapons, right? But when you need Juszczyk to come through, even if it's for one play, it's worth all the millions that you're paying him. And you got to think about it. Like, who's your best blocking guy coming out of that backfield? It's Kyle Juszczyk. And so, like, I'm not saying Jack Coletto can't be to that caliber at some point, but I don't think they want to move on from Juszczyk with a young quarterback situation that they're in. It doesn't matter if it's Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, or Sam Darnold. The quarterback situations are young. I want that established, seasoned, mentality type based veteran back there as Kyle Juszczyk, who can be a lead blocker, who can also be a weapon utilized in the system. I don't think they would move on from him. I don't think he would be a cut candidate. I know cap casualties, all that good stuff. I think they figure out a way to work that out if he has the will to continue to play football.
No question. I'm just saying, like most years, they're going to camp with no backup fullback, and he's kind of like the guy. Or there's like a nominal backup fullback, but it guy's not very viable. This year, Braden Willis looks like a fullback.
He could
Jack
be an
Coletto looks
H-back.
like a fullback,
Mm.
and now there's suddenly two guys at his spot that if he got hurt, they could plug in, or if they wanted to go in a different direction, they could plug in. I'm just saying, Coletto and Braden Willis are definitely look like they could be replacements for Juszczyk. But I'm not saying Juszczyk's going to lose his job. I'm just saying that this is the first time I can remember them having some backups.
Oh,
The other thing is the two, the Niners have this unbelievable, it's uncanny their ability to find undrafted rookie running backs. I thought both Ronald Awatt and Kalen
LeBourne, he's the guy, man.
They both look good. I thought Laborn looked better as far as he's got a real powerful lower body, and yet he's really quick. He runs with great body lean and great power. Laborn looked like he had some explosive qualities, but Awatt does too. Awatt is not some camp. He's not a camp body. That guy's an NFL back. I mean, he's absolutely quick. He's 215 pounds.
Yes.
Great athlete. You can see his athleticism. So both those young backs stood out to me. The two guys to me, I mean, Jair Brown looks great. And Jair Brown, we did an interview with him. He was an incredible interview. And so was Darrell Luter. But to me, the two guys that looked the best at the rookie minicamp on defense, Jalen Graham, the linebacker from Purdue.
Thank you.
Looked terrific.
Thank you.
He's wearing number 50. He's moving around. Whatever his workout numbers are, who cares? Because the guy flows to the ball. He's real. He's real. He's solid. I think he's going to make the team. The other guy that, now granted, I was 2 fields away, but Spencer Wagee, the defensive lineman from North Dakota State.
That's how you say his last name. It's Wagee. I was pronouncing him as Wage because he just sounds so much better. But Wagee's cool.
Wagee. Yeah, it's Wagee.
Waege.
Yeah, Spencer Wagee. And this guy is
inside, outside.
Well, that's the beauty of it. I mean, they list him on our lads list him as a tackle. He played defensive end. But then I asked him, I said, what did you do at, give me the specifics of what you did at North Dakota. And he's like, well, sometimes I'm 0 technique over the nose. Sometimes I'm the 3 technique. He goes, but I've also done the 9 technique and been out wide. So, but this guy tore up his knee 2 years ago. He's not even wearing a sleeve on the knee. It doesn't, it's like, he's out there with no knee brace, no sleeve, no nothing. And he's 300 pounds, and the guy moves. I mean, the guy moves like JJ Watt. The guy moves. The guy moves like a defensive end. He does not move like a defensive tackle. He moves like a defensive end. They actually have 2 guys that need to be studied. One is this Marlon Davidson, who they signed from Auburn, who's another guy who's 300 pounds, who's kind of a defensive end. He's kind of
a guy that just wants to hit the quarterback and not have to go to jail over it.
Right. That's right. He likes it because it's violence in a controlled area and there's no parole. But yeah, Marlon Davidson is definitely more of an edge guy, and Wagee, even though he's 300 pounds with a 1.66 split, you can see the bend, you can see the get off, you can see the hand usage. Dude, I'm telling you, wait until they put the pads on. Spencer Wagee is going to be the guy that we're talking about in this draft.
Okay. You heard it here, Larry.
I really believe it. I really believe that guy is special.
I promise you, while everybody was screaming Joey Fisher, and this is not a shot to him, but from the undrafted guys, my highlighted guy from the undrafted, I had 2 of them. It was Kalen LeBourne and it was Spencer. I called him Wage, but it's Wagey.
And
Those are my two
it looks
circled
like
guys.
Laybourne, but it's Layburn.
Layburn,
I
Layburn.
saw an interview where his dad was in the Navy, and they moved a lot. I think he lived in Japan for a year as a young boy. But he's like, everybody wants to call me LeBorn, but my dad says it's Layburn.
Well, if his dad called him Layburn, then it is Layburn. It's Kalon. Is it? Did I say that right? Kalon Layburn.
I think it's Kalen Layburn.
Kalen Layburn.
It's like we're going back to the
Phonics.
we're going back to the movie with Eddie Murphy when they're in the barber shop.
Oh
His
yeah.
daddy called him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
Clay, you talking about coming to America?
Coming
What you
to
know about
America.
Coming to America. I'm calling Clay. I'm calling him Clay.
Dad called him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
I love it. I love it. Hey, that was one of the most official rookie minicamp breakdowns. You even gave us some takes on some of the guys that they brought in that they just had come out to practice, which was the receiver Pearson.
Yeah. And one last one. I'll give you one last one. This guy was a second-year player who last year was
Kalia Davis.
No, Taylor Hawkins.
Taylor Hawkins, safety.
Taylor Hawkins. Now, Taylor Hawkins played the corner at San Diego State on a really good defense for, I believe, Rocky Long. Then he showed up last year, and he was on the practice squad all year. But I think he tried to bulk up because he was trying to be, safety size. And what it was he lost his incredible man-to-man ability and fluidity because he put on more weight. This year, he cut that weight. Taylor Hawkins showed up at this camp in awesome shape. And I don't know that there's a safety spot to be had because you got Afonga, Gibson, Odom, Jair Brown, Avery Young's here now from Rutgers, who he also looks pretty good. But Taylor Hawkins is in incredible shape. And he looks like he could be a player because you got to remember he's a safety with corner instincts and corner coverage ability, and that's a value in today's NFL games. So the two guys that kind of fit that same mold, one's Quantrez Knight, the other's Taylor Hawkins. To me, Hawkins really stood out as he's in easily the best shape of his life.
All right, guys, you got it right there. Great insight from Larry. I can't wait to see what happens now. Rookie minicamp is over. OTAs will be next week, Larry, and I'm sure you're going to be there.
Yep.
And so now, before we get to we'll talk a little bit about the OTA practices, May 22nd through the 23rd, May 25th, the 30th through the 31st, June 2nd, June 5th through the 6th, June 8th. All right, and then the mandatory minicamp is June 13th through the 15th. All right, so the dates prior to June 13th and 15th are voluntary, and June 13th through June 15th are mandatory. So that's when you'll see the players come out. It's kind of like that. Hey, this the jamboree before you guys go on your 1 month sabbatical before training camp starts, right? So give us a little insight on how that's going to go down, the OTAs.
Well, I mean, it's funny. I just cut a video on the OTAs. I mean, it's you're gonna obviously you're not gonna see Brock. You're gonna see the high the main show on the main stage is gonna be Trey Lance, Sam Darnold competing. Brandon Allen will be there as well. But we're gonna see those two quarterbacks. I'm really the number one subplot to me in the OTAs is, what is the split between Trey and Sam? Is it 50-50?
50?
Is it 90-10 Trey? Is it 85-15? What is it? I need to see 60-40 Trey.
Give us, okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Give us your guess. 60,
it might
40.
be 50-50 at the beginning. It might be.
I wouldn't mind it, though. I wouldn't mind 50-50. Would you oppose to that?
Well, I am opposed to that because I'm opposed to that because Sam Darnold's played. He was drafted 5 years ago. Trey Lance has played 4 games, and you invested a ton in him. Let's not pretend these guys are the same guy. They're not the same guy.
They're not the same.
Darnold has tried and failed. Trey has never been given the opportunity and got hurt. So I would say I'm cool with them splitting, but I need a 60-40 Trey split. If it was my team, I'd make it 70-30 Trey. Because I think Trey needs the reps.
And he does need the reps. I don't want to discount that, but at this point, I mean, it's the very beginning. I wouldn't mind 50-50. I want to see Sam Darnold out there against that number one defense. I want him to make the same mistakes. I want him to learn from those mistakes. I think when it comes to football, you want your quarterbacks, even if Trey is the guy that they're going to go with, which I believe that's who they're going to go with to start the season, like you want to make sure Sam Darnold is prepared. You want to make sure he's gone through the fire because the whole purpose is you don't want Sam Darnold coming out onto the field at any given moment, but at any given moment he can and he needs to be ready. Just like Brock Purdy was thrown into the fire. We don't know how many reps he took at camp as the third string guy when he was in there, but whatever he did to mentally prepare, and I think he's just a different preparer of the game. Like we don't know how Sam Darnold is going to be. And for me right now, I think the first couple of days, I wouldn't mind if it's 50-50. I want to see what Sam Darnold looks like, but then I want to see Trey Lance start go then 60-40, then 70-30, and then by the damn near end of OTAs, Trey Lance 90-10. Like that's kind of like how it should be. And then we can kind of start separating saying, hey, Trey Lance looks like he's going to be quarterback one, and then Sam Darnold will probably slide it in to quarterback two. Now, we do have some updates on the quarterback situation, which has nothing really to do with the 49ers. But how cool is this? Trey Lance and Josh Allen will be throwing at tight end university. That's the George Kittle, Travis Kelce, all the tight ends camp. What are your thoughts about this little venture for Trey Lance?
Well, it's great. I mean, first of all, it's in line with what I just said, which is he needs all the reps he can get. And he also needs to, this 49er offense took off under Brock Purdy, more so than it ever took off under Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, why is that? Because Brock Purdy was in lockstep with George Kittle, and he unleashed Kittle, and look at the production that Kittle had with Purdy. And if Trey Lance is going to be the number one quarterback on this team, he's got to get on the same page with Kittle. He's got to make sure that he's got a great relationship with Kittle. Kittle is going to be a safety valve. Kittle's going to be a really important guy for him, for anybody who's playing quarterback. And so I love it. I love it. It means that, that they're working on that relationship. And also just another revelation of that Trey Lance is a great kid. He's a great guy. George wouldn't have him there if he didn't have if he was some prima donna. George wouldn't have him there if he was all about himself. George wouldn't have him there if he didn't believe in the kid as a person. That kid, that whole camp is not just quarterbacks and tight ends, but it's guys that George likes. You know what I mean? And
yes.
So I think this is even though in and of itself it means nothing, right? Because it's just it's not in Santa Clara. It has nothing to do with the Niners, but it's a double win because Trey needs to get reps, and he needs to, the other thing is it is a real skill to working short term with players you don't know and being able to quickly gauge their speed and their tendencies. That helps you. That helps you when you get into camp because you'll know some of those receivers, but you're not going to know all of them. So you're going to have to adapt to their speed, and you're going to have to make some quick evaluations, and you know what I mean? So it's all about the quarterback and the receivers being on the same page. So one, I think it's important for Trey to get those reps. Two, I think it's important for George and Trey to be on the same page. So I think those are key factors.
Two key factors, and I'm going to add a third factor. I mean, because the other name on this bill is Josh Allen. We watched Trey Lance work out with Patrick Mahomes, and now Trey Lance is going to be working out with another top 5 quarterback, and getting, I wouldn't say he's probably going to get some tips and things like that from a Josh Allen, them being in the same building, same vicinity, having a good time. And so Trey Lance offseason would have been working out with Patrick Mahomes, who's the greatest quarterback in football right now, and Josh Allen, who's probably top 3. Right? Some people say Joe Burrow, whatever. I don't know, but to me, that's good. That's good juju for Trey. That's him showing. Remember, I don't know if it was a show we did, but I remember doing the show when I said Trey's going to have to take this shit by himself. Like, he's going to have to go out there and do him. He can't sit and wait for people to hand him the keys. Go take the keys. This is one of those examples of taking the keys. The first two things you said are super important, but the fact that he's also getting in there and he's going to be building a rapport with some of these elite quarterbacks in the NFL, I think that's huge for Trey Lance because I think Trey Lance will eventually end up in that elite category. So,
and that's what he wants, and that's what he believes, and I agree. I mean, if you're going to be among the greatest, You need to know what makes them tick. You need to be able, so much I mean, when I watched like the late Kobe Bryant, I saw Jordan.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
Jordan,
We all did.
and why did I see Jordan? It's because he copied Jordan, because he studied
Emulated
Jordan,
straight
and
up.
he wanted to be Jordan. He wanted to be Jordan at the press conference. He wanted to be Jordan in the layup line.
The
He
damn
wanted to be
voice
Jordan on
sounded
the.
the same, Larry. You've
Yeah, I mean,
interviewed them. The voices are the exact identical tone. It's
right, and
crazy.
and do you think it's accidental that the two best quarterbacks of this era, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, grew up in the backyard of Joe Montana and Steve Young, watching their every move? I don't. I think that had something to do with that. So I just think that when you have somebody who's giving you a great template and you're a good mimic and you can copy that template, only positive things come from that. We always think of copying as bad, like, oh my God, you copied him, it's bad. You're being original. But it's not about that. It's not, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The quarterback position, Steve Young told me many times that he learned almost everything he knew about the quarterback position from watching Joe. And
Wow.
you know what? I don't think there's any doubt that Aaron Rodgers learned from watching Joe and Steve and Brett Favre. And I don't think there's any doubt that Tom Brady learned from watching Joe and Steve, and what I mean. So that's how you learn. You learn when you get a good example and you're smart enough to understand it's a good example. And Trey is. So Trey's had a chance to work with Mahomes to hear Mahomes' mindset and how he thinks about things and how maybe he separates things in his head. It could be anything from how he carries out play action fakes to how he deals with media requests to how he deals with the player that he feels like is not a fan of his in the locker room to how does he win over a coach that is not in his corner. How does he blend well with Brock and maintain a good civil professional relationship while at the same time giving no ground as a competitor? I mean, these things all have to be kind of talked through and thought about, and there's a lot that goes into it. And so I think Trey's doing exactly what he needs to do.
Great job. Hey, Nicholas says just because somebody hangs out with someone for a bit doesn't mean that they will become that person. Trey Lance is not Patrick Mahomes. That's 100% correct. I don't think any one of us were saying that Trey Lance was going to become Patrick Mahomes. But the thing is, when you surround yourself by greatness, and who else is it better to learn from than the greats? I mean, you could learn from a regular person, you could learn from a coaching structure, but learning from an actual person that's live action playing the game against you, with you, right there with you, you can pick up on certain things. And I'm not saying that Trey Lance is Patrick Mahomes or even wants to be Patrick Mahomes. He wants to be Trey Lance. But it's always cool when you're learning from people that you may see as mentors to the game. Even if they're not mentoring you, it's always good to imitate a person and to kind of like learn some things. Learn what not to do, opposed to everything. So I don't think it's a bad idea. It's not like they're gonna be well, they'll be practicing together, him and Josh Allen. But I think Trey Lance decided to say, hey man, I'm going to get more reps in this summer. I'm going to find ways to upgrade my game. What can I do to become better? Let me learn from some of the ones that are doing it correctly. I think that's kind of where I was going with this, Larry. Any thought to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it right on. I mean, and if you said to me, who is Trey? Who should he model his game after? It's Patrick Mahomes. There's a lot of similarities there. Here the other thing that nobody ever talks about is that we see Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. We see a totally refined player, in Kansas City. He was not this player in college. He really wasn't. I mean, he had incredible stats his final year at Texas Tech, 41 touchdowns, 10 picks. But you're still talking about a player who, I don't know exactly what his college record was, but it's nothing overwhelming. It wasn't like Texas Tech competed for national championships. I mean, he was a 3-year starter at Texas Tech, and I mean, I bet you, if you looked at his collegiate record, I bet you he was probably close to 500 in his career. Now he went to Kansas City. He got a great example to copy in Alex Smith. He got an incredible offensive minded coach, some of the great weapons. And he's emerged as this awesome player. But just because Trey Lance is, practicing with Mahomes doesn't mean he'll be Mahomes. But I see a lot of similarities as far as, Patrick Mahomes' dad was a pro athlete. Trey's dad was a pro athlete. Playing quarterback's important to Patrick Mahomes. Playing quarterback's important to Trey Lance. They're both very similar size-wise. I wouldn't necessarily call Mahomes a runner, but if you give him a 20-yard lane in the fourth quarter of a close game, he's going to take it. And a lot of times his runs ice games. I think Trey's going to be the same kind of guy. I don't think he's a runner. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he can, if you give him a running lane in the fourth quarter, I think he's a good enough competitor to take that running lane and burn you. So I see a lot of similarities between Lance physically and Mahomes. I really do.
Love it, love it. Larry, let's get to the meat potatoes of the show. Let's get down to the NFC and the 49ers schedule. So what I would like to do for this exercise is I would like two things. You to predict the 49ers and how they would in the particular games against the NFC teams. And then let's talk about if the 49ers are the team to dominate. Actually, before we do that, let me know. Do you think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC?
I don't think you can say that. I think they are. Them and the Eagles are right there neck and neck. I'd give the slight edge to the Eagles because of the quarterback situation with the Niners and how important that is and how, undecided it is. I mean, we don't need this team may be quarterbacked by Sam Darnold. So I can't say the Niners, that's a huge revelation if that winds up being the case. So I would say the Eagles are still the number one team in the conference. And then I would say the Niners are the clear two. And I think the distance between 2 and 3 is huge.
So even with the quarterback situation, you feel the Niners would be 2 because a lot of people feel like the Seahawks have gotten a lot better or whatnot. We have to see what they look like. You see Bogdan says Seahawks are looking scary. They have a stable quarterback. The 49ers kind of don't. Do you think the Seahawks trump the Niners, or you still feel like the Niners are the number 2 team, even with the quarterback situation? Because Brock Purdy's not the quarterback right now.
I actually, okay. When the Niners, first of all, the Niners beat the Seahawks 3 times last year. They beat them here, they beat them there, and they beat them in the playoffs.
With Jimmy Garoppolo and with Brock Purdy.
All right.
Again, those 2 quarterbacks are no longer on. Brock Purdy's on the roster, but let's look at Jimmy's not here.
Let's look at where these teams actually were ranked. To me, there's 4 categories I like to look at where the team's ranked. Where are you ranked on offense? Where are you ranked on defense? Where are you ranked on turnovers? And where are you ranked on run defense specifically? The Niners, number 1 defense, number 5 offense, number 1 in the NFL in turnover differential, number 1 in the NFL against the run. Seattle, 13th on offense, 26th on defense, 14th on turnover differential, 28th stopping the run. Mm-hmm. Now, I like the Seahawks draft. I think the Seahawks have had 2 good drafts back to back, but they've done nothing really to change their defensive front 7 significantly. And they were 28th in the NFL against the run, and the Niners were number 1 and added Javon Hargrave. So I think, I saw Louis Riddick came out and said that, he's bullish on Seattle. That's fine. Seattle had a great draft. They got a terrific young Legion of Boom Part 2 cooking up, and they've got some nice weapons. Charbonnet was a nice get on offense at running back. The Ohio State receiver will assuredly help. And they drafted bookend offensive tackles last year. They drafted bookend corners last year, and then they added a third in Witherspoon. They're coming, but 26th in defense, 28th against the run, and they really haven't done anything to improve that. So, no, the Seahawks are not the Niners, and even if the Niners have quarterback issues, the Niners are, as I said, number 1 defense, number 1 against the run, number 1 on the turnovers.
Agreed. All right, let's go to a different team. Let's go to a team like the Cowboys. Because Now again, you said we finished fifth on offense, but what will we be on offense without that particular quarterback? Do you still feel like we're high up, or are we going to drop down a little bit? I mean, I know we don't know, but where do you think they're going to have us start? I know we're ranked I think we're ranked 3 in the power rankings, 3 or 4. I can't remember what it is, but in the power, we're definitely in the top 5 in the power rankings going into this season. So it's going to be interesting to see. But what do you think about the Cowboys being a threat?
Well, I mean, there's no question, but the Cowboys added. They've got a nice outside rush, no question. Micah Parsons, Demarcus Lawrence. They added Viliami Fehoko, Junior Fehoko from San Jose State. They added Tyrus Wheat after the draft. Wheat's going to make that team. Watch. You got Dorrance Armstrong and Fowler. I mean, they can put some heat on the quarterback. They did add Stephon Gilmore in the secondary. They added DeMarvion Overshown to their linebacking core. Mozzie Smith, I think, is a workout guy. I didn't understand that pick. They should have gone with the tight end there. But I like Dallas. But you got to remember this: Dallas is a team that loves to run the ball that doesn't have Zeke, and Pollard's coming off an ACL, and Deuce Vaughn is tiny. And they don't really have another back I'm not a Ronald Jones fan. Rico Dowdell, I liked him at South Carolina, but he's not the guy. Malik Davis. I think Dallas, without Zeke, unless they can get a Fournette. I mean, if Dallas can get a big time runner, they don't have a runner. And Prescott's turned it over a lot in big games. I don't really like McCarthy. Their defense doesn't stop the run. So I don't. I mean, I think Dallas is a talented team, and they're flashy, and they'll have some one-sided wins because they got a lot of pass rush they can put on you. And if the game on the scoreboard gets, if they get up 10 or 14, it could be Avalanche City, and they could win some games one-sided. But if you can run the ball, you can beat the Cowboys, and they're a bad matchup for the Niners because of it.
You mentioned Mozzie Smith, and you didn't understand it. Well, that's why they got him. They got the guy that can stop the run. He's not.
But I mean, I watched Mozzie at Michigan,
I watched him too.
He's a Feldman freak. There's no question.
He stopped the run, Larry. There's nothing you can say that takes me away from him.
He's monster inside, but like I personally, I think he looks. First of all, I would never take a run down guy anymore in a passing league that high. To me, I don't think he's worlds better than guys who went late in the draft who were also good run stuffers. He's a 2-down run stuffer who doesn't really sack the quarterback that much.
He doesn't have that production. That's not in his game.
He's a run down defender in a league that's total pass happy, and we'll see. I saw him get moved in the run game from time to time. He's got great physical ability. That's why he was number 1 on the Feldman freaks list. He's a physical freak. There's no question, but there's a big difference between those physical traits and his film. And to me, his film is inconsistent.
Okay. All right. So let's go through these NFC. We went through the Cowboys. We went through the Eagles. You went through the Seahawks. Let's go with the Rams.
Don't believe in the Rams at all. I think the Rams are going the other way. Though I did like Steve Avila, the TCU guard that they got. He's going to plug and play at left guard. But the Rams' offensive line's not very good. They're a Cooper Kupp injury away from winning 5 games. Their other receivers aren't there. I mean, unless you love Skoranek or Van Jefferson, I'm not a huge Tutu Atwell's a burner, but I mean, they don't have great receivers. I think the line's pretty average. Stafford doesn't move as well as he used to. He's long in the tooth. They got Kyron Williams, but Akers is really their one back. On defense, you've got Aaron Donald, and they added Byron Young. So Byron Young is definitely nice, but the rest of that line, you can double Aaron Donald now because Bobby Brown the third and Marquise Copeland, and these guys are just guys. I don't like necessarily. I did love their pick of Dawan Johnson from Toledo at the very end of the draft. He was Mr. Irrelevant. That was a great freaking pick. And I like them getting Nick Hampton and Byron Young. They've got a couple real speedy edge rushers, but they lost Ramsey. You know, the quarterback's older. The best guy on their front seven's older. I think the Rams, you know, Les needs a good GM. Found some good players. Trevius Hodges Tomlinson will help him on the corner at the nickel spot for sure. And but I just think they hit and miss in the draft. As I said, I love Hodges Tomlinson. I love Nick Hampton, and I love Byron Young. So they've got in Dawan Johnson, but I don't think they're great at linebacker. I mean, Ernest Jones, Christian Rosaboom, Michael Hogt. I mean, those guys. That's not a premier linebacking core. I think they're pretty mediocre, to be honest. I think the Rams, if Stafford stays healthy, they got a shot to win 8 or 9 games, but I think the odds of that are not good. And I like the Rams to have another rough year.
Okay, let's go with the Cardinals just to sum up the NFC West.
Well, the Cardinals are going to have an interesting year just from the standpoint of, they're not going to start with Kyler, and he's probably not going to be back till week 5. So can they win games with Colt McCoy or Clayton Tune? You know, if Clayton Tune hits the ground running and looks great, maybe the Cardinals could surprise. They got a great left tackle, I thought, in Paris Johnson. They added a good receiver in Michael Wilson. You know, I think they've got pretty good receivers, to be honest. You got Rondale Moore, Marquise Hollywood Brown. They still got D-Hop, and you got Michael Wilson. I like their receivers. Their line will be improved. Ertz, obviously, and Trey McBride give them 2 really good tight ends. It's a lot about, do they have who's their runner? I mean, you got James Conner, but after that, I don't love their runners. And then on defense, you lost J.J. Watt, right? He's not there. So I don't see the leader on defense. Is Buda Baker going to be traded? I think so. I do like Catrell Clark, who they drafted.
They also didn't pick up what you call his 5th-year option. My gosh, the kid I wanted to draft, I think he was out of Clemson, linebacker, kind of can play safety.
Marco Wilson?
Nope, he's a linebacker.
Oh, you mean you talking about the nickel, the guy they play in the nickel spot?
What's his name? I know it when you say his name.
Yeah, you're talking about.
We tried. We just can't remember.
Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons.
There it is. Simmons. There it is.
Yeah.
Thanks,
well,
Coach
Isaiah Simmons is an incredible physical specimen. I mean, he's the biggest nickel back in the history of the league.
He's going to be a free agent next year. Go figure.
Catrell Clark from Louisville was a terrific nickel, and they'll probably play Catrell some at the nickel. And they got B.J. Ojolari, who's a good rusher.
Yeah.
They got Dante Stills, who's a pretty good rusher.
West Virginia. They got some pieces.
They've got some pieces. They got some pieces for sure. But personally, I think the Cardinals, I think lack culture. I think they lack leaders. I don't see leaders on their. Buda Baker wants out. J.J. Watt's already out. I think the Cardinals are going to struggle. I really do. I think it's the Niners and the Seahawks in the division.
All right, let's go to the NFC East. We talked about the Cowboys. We talked about the Eagles. We got 2 more teams we got to play. Let's get to them Giants. How do you see the Giants faring in the NFC?
I think the Giants are the 3rd team behind the Niners and the Eagles. I really do. I think, the underrated pickup for them I thought was Paris Campbell, and they also have Wan'Dale Robinson. And they drafted Jalen Hyatt. They got Jamison Crowder. I think the Giants receivers they drafted Bryce Ford Wheaton. Khalil Pimpleton is a tiny little receiver, but he's interesting. Jaden Mickens. They've got a very interesting group of receivers. A lot of receiver depth. So I think the receivers are going to be good. The offensive line has got the makings of a strength. I mean, you've got Andrew Thomas at left tackle, Bretterson, the Michigan kid, at left guard. John Michael Schmitz, I thought, was one of the best linemen in the draft. He's from Minnesota. He's going to plug and play at center. And then you got Evan Neal, the Alabama kid, who was a first-round pick, blue chipper at right tackle, Glowinski at right guard. So they traded for Darren Waller. So you still got Saquon Barkley and Breida. They drafted Eric Gray out of Oklahoma. So yeah, I mean, You got also have other tight ends. You got Bellinger, you got Lawrence Cager. So I kind of like the Giants on offense. Defensively, they got Big Dexter Lawrence and Ashawn Robinson comes over from the Rams. That's
Lawrence
a good
got
one.
that
You got Leonard
contract, too.
Williams,
Yeah.
Azeez Oshalari. Not bad. Not bad. I mean, I think they've got some interesting guys up front. And then in the secondary, Deontay Banks is a good player. They drafted him out of Maryland at the corner.
Yeah.
Can they get Kayvon Thibodeau, cooking? That's a big question for them. I like the Giants. I think the Giants are a solid football team.
I don't want to see them. I don't want to play them because they just somehow always find a way to keep the game interesting. I'll leave it at that, even though we're playing in week 3. All right, let's go with the last team, NFC East, that the 49ers are going to play. Then they have one, I believe, South team that they're playing this year. Let's go with the Washington Commanders.
Well, I think the Commanders are going to take it on the chops. I mean, they've got the most inexperienced quarterback in the league, and Sam Howell, and then Brissett behind him. They do have 3 really good runners. This is going to be a run-heavy team. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and then the Kentucky kid they drafted, Chris Rodriguez, all big-time runners. So they got good running backs for sure. Offensive line, I think, is just okay. I do like some of their receivers. Jahan Dotson's got great ball skills. Scary Terry McLaurin is still there. He's really nice. Yeah, I mean, to me, that they've got 2 really good receivers. I just named them, and Howell may be able to surprise some people, and they should run the ball well. They still got a great defensive line. I mean, are they going to trade Chase Young? Are they going to trade Montez Sweat? Are they, are those guys going to be on the team this year? If they are, that's as good a front as there is, right? Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. Those guys are big time. I mean, they got the vanilla gorilla, John Ridgeway, who was with Dallas, who's a really good run player. KJ Henry they drafted. He's interesting. He was at Clemson. So they've got a really good front line. Linebackers, they got Davis, Cody Barton, and Khaleke Hudson, David Mayo. It's kind of it's like a 4-2-5 look that they go with. I think they could be better at linebacker. In the secondary, they picked up the Illinois kid, Jartavius Martin.
Yeah.
And then Emmanuel Forbes is a star. I mean, Emmanuel Forbes, that was the guy that I wanted the Niners to get. He's a superstar. I mean, he's like a Deion Sanders. So they added a true difference maker on the corner. So I like their secondary. I like their defense overall. I don't love the linebackers, but I love their front and I love their secondary. They added 2 great players in the secondary in Martin and Forbes.
Interesting, because a lot of the Commander fans felt like their weakness was the linebacking spot, and they didn't address it. Let's go with the South. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, and they're another team that doesn't really have
It's Baker
quarterback.
Mayfield, Larry.
I mean, it's Baker Mayfield. But here's the thing about Tampa. Tampa's interesting because they've built a really good core, and they had a great draft. Kalijah Kancey's a superstar, and they just added him. They also got Yaya Diaby out of Louisville, who's 260 pounds and can rush the passer. You got Vita Vea and Greg Gaines inside. Those guys can play. At linebacker, it's probably as good a linebackers as there is. I mean, you got Devin White, Levante David, Shaq Barrett. They drafted Jose Ramirez from.
They got Ramirez and Yaya.
Yeah, they got Ramirez and Yaya. So they got some
our shows,
speed.
Larry. They've been watching our shows.
They got some speed guys, and then it's Antoine Winfield's a damn good free safety. You still got Carlton Davis in that secondary. Jamel Dean. They've got some decent players. Kayvon Merriweather comes over from Iowa. He's a good player. So and then offensively, I mean, they have now Chase Edmonds, Rashad White, and Sean Tucker. They drafted out of Syracuse is a good back. You got Baker. As he find himself, I think offensively they're a little underrated. Payne Durham was a really good add at tight end. So they've got a good tight end. The offensive line, they added Cody Mauch, and they've got Gadecki and Ryan Jensen and Tristan Wirfs. I think their offensive line is actually really a strength. And then receiver wise, I mean, you got incredible receivers. I mean, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, Mike Evans, Trey Palmer from Nebraska is a burner. Um, excuse me, Raheem Jarrett from Maryland is a damn good receiver as well, slot receiver. So yeah, they're interesting. I think they're going to be a little bit better on offense than people think. And Kalijah Cansey could be a monster.
He's going to be a monster. Their defense is stacked. We see
Yeah,
them
it's a
this
good
year.
defense. I mean, it's not a bad team. I probably would lean towards the Buccaneers on paper, even with Baker, to win that division.
Ooh, all right. Let's go to the north, right? And so the Vikings. How do you see the Vikings, and how well you think they're going to finish in the NFC?
Well, I mean, the Vikings are an interesting team. I really think their roster is very underrated. But what's happening here is is Dalvin Cook going to be dealt? It sounds like they're shopping him still. And if he is
their
shopped,
backup running back? Is it
they've got
Madison?
Alexander Madison, they've got Ty Chandler out of Carolina,
Oh, they did.
and they
Get
just
Ty Chandler,
drafted
okay.
Dwayne McBride. And McBride fumbles a lot, but he's a tremendous contact balance running back. So they've got some other backs, but Cook is a difference maker. Kirk Cousins is there. You got Nick Mullins. They drafted Jaron Hall out of BYU. A couple good tight ends, Hawkinson and Josh Oliver, both good tight ends. Offensive line's not terrible. Christian Darrisaw is their left tackle. They added Jordan Addison to Justin Jefferson. They got Jalen Reagor. Malik Knowles was a nice pickup as well out of K-State. And then defensively, it's an interesting. I mean, defensively they were bad, and on paper, but they did add some good players. I mean, Jay Ward's a good safety / nickel. They got Andre Carter, Ivan Pace. He's a pretty good little player, linebacker from Cincinnati. Jacqueline Roy, Najee Thompson, not a bad corner prospect, but still, defensively they were bottom of the league in defense. And I think they're going to struggle on defense. I mean, they did bring in Byron Murphy from Arizona. They bring in Marcus Davenport from the Saints. They signed Jordan Hicks. They signed Harrison Phillips. They brought in Dean Lowry. They tried to change things up on their D. I think they'll be better on D, but not good enough. And on offense, they have great weapons, but they lost Thielen, and it sounds like they're going to trade Cook. So I don't know what the deal is going to be here. And then I gotta think that if there's one team to keep your eyes out for a trade for Trey Lance, it's this team. Because one, they don't have the solution to what happens after Kirk Cousins, and I think they would love to have Trey Lance. And so they would be the one team that I would keep my eye on as a team that might trade for Trey Lance.
All right, Larry, let's do it. I need your NFC prediction. All right, so we'll go through the games.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go week 2 Rams. Is that a win?
That's a win.
Week 3 against the Giants.
That's national TV, Thursday night game. Thursday nights favor the home team. Niners are at home. That's a win.
Week 4 against the Cardinals, home game.
That's a win. That's Niners against Colt McCoy. That's a win.
All right, so far we have the 49ers at 3-0. Week 5 at home against the Cowboys. Sunday
That's
night.
a win. Dallas is a bad matchup for the Niners. Niners can run it on Dallas. That's a win.
Okay, let's go with week 8. Nope, not week 8. I'm sticking to the NFC. Hold on, give me a
Week
second.
7.
Week 7 against the Vikings away.
That's a loss. I'm going to go with a loss there. That's a Monday nighter in Minnesota. Tough place to play. Niners will have come off a road game against Cleveland. Cleveland's physical. I think the Vikings get them there.
I mean, I'm just saying I have it as a loss, and I lost a few subscribers. But listen, it's all good. It's all love. It's just one of those weird games where I just feel like the Niners fall short. They don't get beat. They just fall short, if that makes it feel any better. All right. Let's go to week 11 against the Buccaneers.
I'm going to say that's a win.
Ooh, okay. All right. Let's go with week 12, the Seahawks, Thanksgiving.
That one is probably going to be a loss.
Okay. All right. And then we're on the road again. Hold on. We're on the road again. All right. So we're going to Philly, week 13, Eagles.
That's a loss.
Ooh. Ooh. Interesting. Interesting. All right. Week 14, home, Seahawks.
That's a win.
Okay. So you got a splitting.
Splitting with Seattle.
Got to split with Seattle. I could dig it. I could dig it. Interesting, though, that you feel like we'll lose on the road there. Is it because of the short week?
Yeah, I do think. I just think that it's going to be hard to beat that Seattle team at that point in the schedule.
We did it last year, though.
They did, but this year, a different year, different
Good
travel.
point. Good point. Good point. Different travel. Week 15, Cardinals away.
Sweep Cardinals. I mean, there's no question. The Niners are going to sweep the Cardinals. The Cardinals are bad. The Cardinals at that point, will be done for the year already. That will be a blowout.
All right. Week 17, another late season game with the Washington Commanders. This time it's in D.C.
This is this is going to be a loss.
Okay.
And the reason for this is the rest. If you look at the rest, the Niners have a lot less rest going into that game than the Commanders do. So I think that's going to be a loss.
And then we cap the season off with a home game against the Rams.
And that's going to be a win, and that's probably not even going to be Stafford. That would be the 49ers beating Stetson Bennett.
Larry, what is your overall NFC record? I think I got you at 4 losses. What did you have?
I think I have 4 losses there.
4 losses.
But I think I could see them being a 13-4 team. The one I'm a little unsure about is week 1. The Steelers are really good at home in week 1, but the Niners are better than the Steelers. The Niners are going to open as a 3 or 4 point favorite. I would say that game could go either way. But I think that could be a loss. So I could see the Niners at 12-5.
Interesting. Interesting. I know the Niners lost on the road last year in Chicago. Granted, monsoon. But make no means Trey Lance was the better quarterback in that game. It's just unfortunate that there were a couple of bonehead plays that happened, right, Larry? Like the breakdown on the defense, in my opinion, when Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw got miscommunicated, and next thing you know, Dante Pettis is just waving his hand wide open, and then it's a touchdown. That was the change of the game, that right there.
That broken play.
The broken play. And you don't account for those. You don't expect those to happen.
Well, I mean, okay, let's go back to that game. People talk about it. I saw some people talking about that game. People were ripping Trey Lance today going, well, Justin Fields won that game in the monsoon. Okay, but that's revisionist history. If you go back and watch that game again, it wasn't that it rained. It was what it did to the field and where in the game it happened.
When the rain happened, yes.
Exactly. If the rain had, if the field conditions had, the Bears already had their points at that point. The Niners needed offense when the field became just a quagmire. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, to me, that if that rain comes in a different pattern, probably a different result. But also you got to remember this: the Bears are a team that notoriously are tough to beat in their place, and they are, fodder on the road. That game was at Soldier and they won it, so Niners had a couple broken plays. They weren't really ready, but that was about the Niners when they needed the offense to be there. The field was in such bad shape that there was no way it became a factor. And otherwise, I think they would have won that game.
And there are other factors, right? You lose your starting running back, Elijah Mitchell. Now Jeff Wilson Jr. is coming into the game. So now you can't even run the ball sustainably the way you wanted to run the ball because your number one running back is out. And so now you got to insert the next guy. And it was just unfortunate. Yes, Debo did fumble the ball in that game. And then there were a couple of bonehead penalties by Dre Greenlaw in the same game. There was a lot of stuff for me to where the Niners beat themselves, even with the monsoon. They still had opportunities. They couldn't get themselves off the field at the right times, and it was
They weren't
unfortunate.
disciplined enough on defense. You just
That's
said it. I
it.
mean, they had 2 or 3 really untimely, costly penalties where they were being the more physical team, and they got 15-yard penalties and extended drives because of it. And that, and a couple busted plays and terrible weather at the end, that was it. That was enough to lose that game.
I agree. I agree. And so I brought that up because I understand how well the Steelers are at home, but
Yeah.
week one, but this on their opening home openers. But you got to go back into history because they got a new quarterback in Kenny Pickett. I don't expect him to be great. I just don't. And I mean, if I had to toss up, it's going to really come down to Trey Lance versus Kenny Pickett, whoever's the starting quarterback, and things like that. But then when you look at the 49ers, I mean, the defenses are stout. I think the Niners have overall the better defense, and they travel well. Now, if the defense don't do dumb stuff like they did in that game, if they play a lot more discipline, and I just believe Wilkes is going to make sure his guys are disciplined. They're going to be a lot more aggressive, but they got to be disciplined. Can't hit the quarterback late. You just can't. You just can't. Like, don't do it. Ease up. Back off. Do whatever you got to do. Don't keep them on the football field. Najee Harris, good running back. Is he CMC? No. Like, so I then we got Javon Hargrave to stop the run. So I really like our chances week one on the road. So I know a lot of people feel like it could possibly be a loss. It's a toss up just because of history. I think the Niners usually travel well, and when they start on the road, they do damage. It was just unfortunate that last year they had to also deal with the monsoon. Right? I think that was part of
I mean,
the
this one's matchups for me. I mean, this is TJ Watt on Colton McKivitz, Alex Highsmith on Trent Williams. The Steelers put a lot of heat on the quarterback, and their place is going to be rocking and rolling. They'll probably get a couple calls in their favor, but at the same time, it's also going to be Nick Bosa probably going up against Broderick Jones, and Broderick Jones' first NFL start, and Nick Bosa could ruin the day. So,
and I think Colton McKivitz might fare well. I think I believe in the kid. Like,
I do too. But then there's also the Niner corners are going to have to stand up. The Steelers added Allen Robinson. You got George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. They've got some decent receivers. So it's going to be about, can the Niners block the Steeler rush? Can the Niner rush get to Pickett? That's where this game's going to be decided, I think.
Matchups, guys.
Matchups. Definitely in that one.
Larry, it's been real. I got a couple of super chat contributions and things like that. I just wanted to read them, and then you can tell everybody where they can find you, and then you can send us home. I like when you take us out. You'll take us out, all right? So
Sounds
let's
good.
go. Let's get through these contributions real quick. It's super chat segment time right here on the Wayne Breezy Show, and here they are. I'm gonna foghorn for all of them. Got a couple. Shout out to my man Nick. It's the BK Show. Burger BK, have it your way. BK, another great one. What do you guys think about Riddick's comments regarding Darnold? Is this just another national media guy looking for attention, or is this something to it? Or is there something to it? What do you think about the comments? You kind of briefly touched on it earlier.
Well, yeah, I mean, Louis Riddick went on with Rich Eisen, and he basically parroted what we've heard a lot, which is that people that he knows, inside sources, nameless, faceless sources, have told him that Sam Darnold has a great shot to beat out Trey Lance and be the Niners starting quarterback and become the story of the year in the NFL. And that is what it would be. If Sam Darnold beats out Brock Purdy and Trey Lance and becomes the unquestioned number one starter of the Niners, that is going to be the biggest surprise in the NFL this year, or definitely among them. So all I got to say to that is that, there's an awful lot of people who are spending an awful lot of time, investing a lot of breath in Sam Darnold's going to shock the world. So obviously there's some belief that that's viable. I won't buy it until I see it, because I just think that Sam Darnold's got an elongated release. He turns the ball over. He's dramatically inconsistent. The only thing that is consistent about Sam Darnold is how inconsistent he is. And so I think Trey Lance, I think if it's a fair fight, I think Trey Lance beats out Sam Darnold with ease. That'll be my feeling on it.
All right, and let's get to our last contribution. J-Dog from Boston. Listen, the Celtics play the Heat tonight, and I can't wait. Yo, I was feeling like we don't have enough until I listened to you guys. The Eagles and Seahawks look like they have the talent to test us. What are your thoughts on this one? Shout out to J-Dog.
Well, I mean, the Eagles are a tremendous team, right? I mean, you got 2 number 1 receivers in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. You got a true number 1 tight end in Dallas Goedert. You got a really good young quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and now you got a whole can full of backs: DeAndre Swift, Gainwell, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott. I mean, they got a lot of offensive weapons. They also, on paper, on May the 17th here, have the best offensive line going. But, who's to say who's going to be healthy? Kelsey's a little bit older. Lane Johnson's a little bit older. They had tremendous health last year. Are they going to have that same health this year? We don't know. That's always the equalizer. And then on defense, you can take away Javon Hargrave and plug in Jalen Carter. And if Jalen Carter is a total pro's pro and he's totally this hardworking kid that you put him in the Eagles culture and suddenly he's, reinvents himself as the hardest working guy, yeah, then there's potential. They're better there. But this kid, for his biggest job interview of his life, showed up out of shape. And there's some projection looking at Jalen Carter. And I just think that, is he going to be better than Hargrave? Maybe, but maybe not. And he's a great talent, but is he motivated? And then Fletcher Cox is getting older. Brandon Graham's getting older. Their linebacking core, Nicholas Morrow, Nakobe Dean. I'm not that thrilled by their linebacking core. I love the Sidney Brown kid, but they also lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from their secondary. He's an alpha. He's a major playmaker. Bradbury had the year of his life last year. Can he bounce back and replicate that again? I don't know. So the Eagles are undoubtedly the best roster in the NFC, but they're projecting, Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter to immediately hit the ground running and make an impact on their D-line. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. We'll see. I mean, Jalen Carter, if he plays to his full potential, could be better than Javon Hargrave. That's a big if. It's a big if.
Huge if. If. Larry, I appreciate you. Thank you guys for the Super Chat contributions. We appreciate it over here. Larry, I want you to let everybody know where they can find you and what do you got going on next, and then you go ahead and send us home, man.
Sounds good. The Krug Show right here. I got the T-shirt on. The Krug Show on YouTube. We just passed 18,000 subs. We've been at it for 14 months now and loving it. Talk a ton of Niners, little Warriors, little Giants, but mostly Niners. And as far as the rest of today, me and Breezy here at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. That's our slot. Then at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, Raj from RSF 49ers is going to stop by. I love Raj. Raj is always fun. We usually do it on Mondays, but we couldn't make it work this Monday. So Raj at 5:30, and then at 8:00 tonight, Damon Bruce will stop by. He's starting his own YouTube channel, and so we'll do a little hit with Damon Bruce. And then tomorrow, Vish will stop by on the channel. We'll do a little Vish stuff tomorrow at 3:00. And then Friday, Jack Hammer is going to be in the house on the channel. And then Saturday, we're hoping to hook up with Jack Coletto of the Niners and get him on and chop it up with him.
Spicy. Larry has a ton of shows. I got to get more stuff down so I can get to that 15K. But Larry, I love you. Thank you so much for being here this week. I can't wait to chop it up with you on your channel. Take us home, baby.
Breezy, you're the man. 3,000 on our way to 4,000 and onward and upward. The great Wayne Breezy. Anytime we hang, it's always a great time. Breezy, we'll see you next Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay up, faithful. Peace.